Some of my favorite gaming experiences have been those rare occasions when, out of nowhere, a game changes the way you see the world, or teaches you something about yourself. Recently, James was telling me of just such an experience he'd had. A video game asked him a question he couldn't answer. He said he was playing the game, he reached a certain part, and then he just had to set the controller down and think. He sat there, cross-legged, pondering for more than half an hour. Then, he picked up the controller. He knew what to do, or rather what he would do. And in doing so, he learned something about himself. Today we're going to discuss that one question, that tiny moment in one game, and show just how much impact a single, well-crafted scenario can have. For those of you wondering, the game was Mass Effect 2. By this point, I figure most of you have played it. If you haven't, don't worry, you should still be able to follow along, but, spoilers. Seriously, go play the Mass Effects, they're great games. Okay, everybody left the room who doesn't want to hear Mass Effect spoilers? Good. There comes a point in Mass Effect 2 where the player is asked to decide the fate of a faction of the Geth, a sentient machine race. Here's the setup. The Geth were initially one unified group. Then they began to have ideological and religious differences. Now, one sect of the Geth has come to believe that it is the will of God to destroy Commander Shepard. That's you. And the other sect believes that it should protect Shepard. The player is given the choice to either destroy the Geth sect that wants Shepard dead, or reprogram them in such a way that they share the beliefs of the group of the Geth that want to protect you. They won't even know they've been reprogrammed. So yes, there is a clear storyline question being asked, but what's really being asked of us, the player, here? On a surface level, this is a question of how you deal with religious fundamentalism. It's meant to lead us to consider current world affairs, and ask ourselves, are those really the only two solutions? Are there options other than total destruction or the fundamental undermining of belief? But there's another question here, a more introspective one, just as serious as any question about modern life, if a little more abstract. Fundamentally, the player is being asked, what does it mean to be human? What is at the core of being a sentient being? This is the same question that philosophers and poets have asked throughout time. We can trace this very question from Aristotle to Milton. We see it in Hume and Nietzsche, Descartes and Kant. It is a question that we as human beings can't help but ask, and we do so through every medium we have. So let's take a closer look at how it's being asked here. Imagine for a second that this Geth sect is you, and the belief in question is something that you believe in very strongly, or hold very dear. Now imagine someone could take that belief from you, say the religion of your father, or your belief in the worth of your own individuality. Imagine that they could do it without asking you, without you ever knowing, without your volition at all. Imagine that they could wipe away your belief so thoroughly that if you met your former unaltered self, you would disagree so violently that you probably couldn't stand each other. Now imagine that the only way to prevent that from happening was a struggle to the death. Which would you choose? I, for one, would rather go down fighting. Is not our free will, our ability to choose our own beliefs, at the core of what makes us human? Is it not our ability to overcome our instincts that make us sentient? What would we be without that? To me, this question also sparked thoughts of forced lobotomies, brainwashing, re-education. And yet here the question was presented so reasonably. As you're playing, you might think, of course, I should rewrite their beliefs, for their own good. You might come to believe that this faction of the Geth doesn't understand its own evil nature, and you should benevolently try to save them from their clear path towards self-destruction. But how many manic depressives have gone on the table? How many homosexuals have been sent away to be cured? How many heretics tortured? How many lovers of democracy interned by these same arguments? Being forced to confront these questions, to understand how they're presented and what they mean, taught James something about himself, taught him what he believed the place and the value of free will to be. But just because that's the answer James chose doesn't mean it's the right one. If you go back and play that section of the game again, you might find yourself thinking differently, or approaching the problem from a different angle. This is the unique power of video games as a medium. They ask us to live our decisions. In this medium, we cannot be spectators. We are forced to confront our own actions, and that forces upon us a level of introspection. Now, some of you may be thinking that this is a silly thing to be talking about in a video game, that we are reading way too much into this. Guys, that's something we have to get past. Mass Effect 2 is a well-thought-out game, made by an incredible team. No one would think twice at trying to understand the meaning in an Oscar-nominated film or a Pulitzer Prize-winning book. Is it somehow beneath us to learn about ourselves from an interactive experience? Do we doubt the makers of games so much that we think them incapable of putting anything of worth into a video game? I don't believe much in authorial intent, but I believe the guys at BioWare are sharp enough to know what they're doing. If you go back to that part of the game, you'll notice that the mission where you're asked to decide the fate of the Geth is called A House Divided. This is a reference both to one of Lincoln's first speeches on slavery and to a biblical passage, specifically Mark 3:25 and Matthew 12:25, where Jesus is accused of heresy and demon worship. And that biblical reference is no accident. Many of your other crew members' loyalty missions reference biblical passages as well. Miranda's refers to Luke 11 and the story of the prodigal son. Garrus's is a reference to Exodus 21:24. Thane's either refers to Deuteronomy 24:16 or Leviticus 26:39, depending on how you interpret the character and his relationship with his son. This isn't just haphazard. The developer wants us to understand the dual nature of their reference. They're using the context to clue us in on the nature of the question being asked. This moment in the game really only falls short in one way, not embedding the question into the game mechanics. As our medium evolves, designers are learning to embed and reference these sort of dilemmas with all the tools that games provide. Mass Effect 2 does a brilliant job of making you live the dilemma of choosing between what may well be genocide and the utter subversion of an entire race's free will. Unfortunately, the designers missed a great opportunity to reinforce this dilemma at its conclusion. If both choices had resulted in renegade points, instead of one being labeled the renegade choice and the other being the good paragon choice, this would have been a fully realized attempt at using the medium of gaming to provide the player with a moment of introspection. Here alone, the designers fell short, looking at the question and the game as separate entities. But I guess one can't ask for everything. We'll get there. So, no matter how you approached this dilemma, or what answer you gave when you played it, I hope you learned something from the experience. As you can see, video games are absolutely capable of enriching our lives. I, for one, can't wait to see them get better and better at it. See you later.